How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined yet again by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find us both on X at Dalton_Trigg and at Coach Drew 33. As always, be sure to like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms, including YouTube and including Apple Podcasts. We want you to subscribe everywhere you listen to your podcast, but especially those two. Those have a close spot in our hearts, so be sure to go do that. The Mavs, they are rolling now. They're on a 2-game win streak. They are 3-1 on the young season, and really haven't played their best, nowhere near their best basketball, in my opinion. Like, there is a lot to improve on, but to make your way through these early season bumps and bruises and to still come out of the first 4 games with a 3-1 record is pretty solid. And they could very easily be 4-0 if they had just made their layups in that Phoenix game a few nights ago. So coming off that win against Utah, it was the second night of a back-to-back in Minnesota against the Timberwolves, Western Conference Finals rematch. The Mavs come out on top, 120-114, in a very similar way to how they won Game 2 of that series in Minnesota. Luka hit a massive three-pointer late in this game to give the Mavs essentially what was the game-winning bucket. It wasn't as late in the game as that Game 2 game winner earlier this year, but it was very similar. It made the crowd hush. He was talking crap to a fan on the sideline.
Made the crowd hush, but Luka started talking a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, you saw him just start screaming into the crowd, so that was
that
good.
that shot that he did hit, and it was very similar to the Utah game, where he hadn't hit a 3 all game. He was like 0 of 8 from 3 in that Utah game, and then he hit a huge one down the stretch. Same thing in this game. He was 0 of 7 from 3 until he hit that near half court shot over I can't remember if it was Jaden McDaniels or not. Wait, let's see. Maybe it was Nikhil Alexander Walker. I think that's who it was. But anyway, regardless, Luka hit the huge shot. He was talking trash to the fans on the sideline. Klay Thompson, y'all need to go to the Mavs Twitter account at Dallas Mavs and look at the video they posted. Because you can, from that angle, you can see Luka talking trash to the fans on the sideline. Well, in the background, the other players are walking to the bench, and Klay Thompson, he's grinning from ear to ear. He's looking at Luka doing his thing and just grinning like, man, that he is that guy. But yeah, I mean, look, it was a great win against a really good Minnesota Timberwolves team on second night of a back-to-back. Mavs improved to 3-1. And just a quick stat breakdown of some of the leaders here before we go into more detail on some of these other topics. But Kyrie Irving led the way in this one with 35 points. Also had 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal. Shot 13 of 23 overall, 6 of 8 on 3-point shots. And obviously that was a season high for him so far. He had 25 of those 35 points in the second half. And according to Mavs PR, the Mavs improved to 7-0 all time when Kyrie hits at least 6 threes. And it says it was his 13th 35-point effort since being with the Mavs, including his third against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, and that's his most against any franchise. So, like Luka, Kyrie just happens to love playing Minnesota. So, crappy luck for Minnesota that the Mavs have 2 guys that just love to kill them. But overall, great game. It didn't look like it was going to get off to a very good start, or things weren't looking good for the Mavs, because in that first quarter, Anthony Edwards nearly outscored the Mavs by himself. He had 24 points in that first quarter. What were your thoughts when Ant came out of the gate swinging like he did?
So Anthony, we really think of him as the epitome of a streaky shooter, and you really saw that today. I mean, he came out, I want to say he hit 7 of 8 or something like that from three. He had, I think he had like 24 points in the first quarter, which is
Yeah.
just absolutely insane. He finished with 37, but he had 24 of his 37 points in the first quarter. So, I mean, he came out absolutely unconscious, and we kept trying to single guard. And I mean, we were there on a lot of these shots. They would set ball screens for him. He'd come off, and he'd just rise up and drill it. And we were there. We were in the vicinity. It just wasn't enough. Um, we probably should have thrown a double at him sooner to get the ball out of his hands, because whenever he's on a heater like that, I mean, you just have to get the ball out of his hands because there's literally nothing you can do to stop it. But at the same time, he slowed down tremendously in the second and third quarter, kind of picked back up in the fourth. But yeah, I mean, whenever you have a guy going off like that, specifically at the very beginning of the game, you just have to weather the storm and stay in it. And Dallas did a pretty good job of that. I mean, even when Anthony Edwards was, in the middle of his onslaught, we were never out of striking distance. Obviously, we ended up winning. But I think we went into halftime up, did we not?
Yeah. Yeah. Leading by 2 at halftime after that flurry.
Exactly.
They were down by 1 at the end of the first quarter, but then outscored the Timberwolves by 10 in the second quarter to have a halftime lead, and then never really looked back. So
Right. And, only being down by 1 at the end of the first quarter after giving up to 24 points to one
no,
person.
they were down 8. They were down
We were
8
down
at the end of the
8.
first. Yeah. Yeah.
Still, I mean, you would expect to be down double digits
Yeah.
whenever someone goes off like that.
Well, see, I
So,
was thinking because I was looking at it, and all the social media accounts were going nuts. Obviously, those aggregation accounts, because Anthony Edwards, he's on pace to challenge Wilt Chamberlain
yeah,
tonight.
they made that comment.
Tune in, and I just think, and I actually tweeted this out as it was happening. I was just like, I just don't think this is going to hold up. Like, it can't.
No,
We've seen this from Luka in the past. There's been times where Luka's had 30 plus points midway through the second quarter, and then he'll kind of fizzle out a little bit towards the end. That was back before he had the weapons that he does now around him. And then obviously he had that one game in Atlanta where he didn't slow down and he ended up with 73 points. But
that was great.
yeah. But you kind of figured that Anthony Edwards, and then look, this was the theme in the Western Conference Finals. He came out with high energy and everything, but the Mavs just wear him down throughout the course of a game, make him work a little bit. By the time you get to the end of the third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, to finish the game, those legs are a lot heavier.
Exactly. He loses his legs, and Edwards is he's such a high movement, high octane guy on both ends of the floor. He plays really, really hard, but that tends to take a toll on your body throughout the game, and you don't realize it while you're out there. But once your legs start to go, you start to lose a lot of lift on your shot. And if you look at the way that he shoots the ball, he uses a lot of leg, because he jumps super duper high whenever his release point is so high. So the issue with having a super high jump shot, bear with me, I know it's a very strange terminology, but a super high jump shot, is whenever your legs start to go, you have to adjust. And it's just very, very difficult to do. That's why the best shooters usually have a very minimal jump on their jump shot. It's just up, down, very minimal. I mean, for instance, you look at I hate to use this example, but you look at James Harden, who is probably one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Maybe gets an inch off the ground every time he shoots the ball, but it's okay because it's super duper consistent. Same thing with Luka. Luka isn't jumping up super duper high whenever he shoots the ball. So these guys that get all this lift on their jumper, once their legs start to go, that consistency's out the window. And I think that's part of the reason why Anthony Edwards is so streaky, because it's hard to remain consistent whenever you rely on something like that.
Yeah. You have to have guys that'll make him work too. It's like, I look at that Nuggets series that the Timberwolves beat the Nuggets in the second round of the playoffs last year. Ant's not going to be guarding Jokic.
No.
Jokic is the main guy, and they had Rudy Gobert and Cat, playing on him, and Nas Reed. So he was able to conserve more of his energy in that series, which helped him finish those games, and they beat the Nuggets. They took it to Game 7 and beat them. Not the same animal against the Mavs because, well, first off, he poked the bear, Kyrie Irving, ahead of that Western Conference Finals series. And then Kyrie Irving wore him out so much in those first two games that he was having to take in oxygen on the sidelines.
Yep.
when he exited the game. It's just a completely different, ball game when you're having to guard two future Hall of Famers at the level you have. You have to be aggressive if you're going to have any chance, and you still might not have a chance. And then to turn back around and carry the entire load basically offensively for your team, it's a hard task. I mean, we've seen Luka do it for the first several years of his career until he's gotten to this point. So, and especially now for Ant, because they did okay efficiency wise in this game, and they've looked. I think they'll be better once they figure out the chemistry stuff with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. But Cat, I know we have some things that we think, his shortcomings, I guess I'll call them. We think he has a lot of shortcomings, but he was a guy who, when he gets hot, you can lean on him offensively.
Yeah.
And now, the Wolves just don't have that guy anymore.
That's why I was so shocked to see them get rid of him. I couldn't believe it because he was one of their best offensive options.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying Cat is a guy who's going to turn another team into a bona fide championship contender. I personally thought the Knicks were like way overrated after that trade went down. Like, people just assuming that they're going to overtake the Boston Celtics. They're not.
No.
But with all that being said, I do think the Minnesota Timberwolves could have gotten more for Cat if they had waited a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Thought they sold on him way too low.
I also think that both teams, I might get some disagreement from this, but I also think that both teams lost that trade. I think both teams left that trade being worse off than they were beforehand.
The rare double loss trade.
I mean, it was because Cat just doesn't fit. He just doesn't fit. I mean, I watched them play against the Celtics, and I know everyone looks bad against the Celtics whenever they make 33s in a game, but he didn't look like he fit. I know it's early. I know they're going to figure it out, but stylistically, it just doesn't look like he's a very good fit for what they're going to want to do.
Yeah, they need more toughness, is down low, and that's just something they don't have. And Mitchell Robinson would help, but he can't stay healthy. But anyway,
mobility, the ability to make an impact on the glass. They need someone rugged down there. They need an enforcer, and Cat is not an enforcer.
Well, I'll say this. I hope they do figure it out, and I hope they do beat the Celtics in the playoffs and meet the Mavs in the finals, because Kyrie Irving playing at Madison Square Garden is slightly different from Kyrie Irving playing at TD Garden in Boston. Kyrie is one of the best MSG performers ever. So we're hoping for that. We're hoping Kyrie Irving ends up playing in New York for the NBA Finals.
Also, Dallas versus Brunson.
Oh yeah, so many good storylines there. It'd be great. But yeah, look, I'm looking at and we mentioned it in the opener, but for the Mavs to be playing, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording, and you said you think the Mavs are probably playing at maybe 60% tops of what they could be. I think that's a good number for it. I agree with that. To be 3-1 after 4 games, and then look, you even look at this game tonight. The Timberwolves shot better from the field. They shot 50.6% to Dallas's 48.4. They shot 48.7% from 3.
Insane.
To Dallas's 41. Almost 50% for the Timberwolves from beyond the arc. So
no, what the difference was though? It was turnovers. How many turnovers did Minnesota have?
they doubled up the Mavs. The Minnesota Timberwolves had 20 turnovers to Dallas's 10.
Oh man, now that
You
doesn't
have,
apply to Dallas though. I mean, Dallas had some really, really bad
yeah,
turnovers, especially in the first half. We were just throwing the ball away, and I'm pretty sure I made the comment that kid needs to call a timeout and start chewing some asses because some of the some of these things that I was seeing, it was just unacceptable. I mean, we were just throwing the ball away. It was completely unforced errors, and
yeah.
as professional basketball players, that should never happen. I know it does still. I know people make mistakes, but there were so many of them in the first half. At least that's the way it seemed. How many? Can you see how many we had in the first half?
I can't on this page that I'm on, but I'm sure it was. I'm sure most of those 10 did come in the first half
Yeah,
because it was really sloppy. And look, credit to the Mavs defense. 20 turnovers for the Timberwolves. That wasn't all self-inflicted for them. That was, forced
no, we
turnover.
forced them.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
we
playing aggressive defense. So
now. Also, I'm going to continue to be, a Debbie Downer a little bit. I thought we did a really piss poor job defensive rebounding on free throws. We gave up so many offensive rebounds on free throws, and that can't happen. How many offensive rebounds are we giving up per game? I'm just curious.
I don't know per game. I do know in this game against the Timberwolves, got out rebounded by 42 to 40, and then the offensive boards, Mavs actually had 12, Timberwolves had 11. So we actually got more offensive boards than Minnesota did. It's just it seemed like the Mavs, the ones that they gave up, seemed a lot more untimely.
Well, a lot of them were during were at the conclusion of the second free throw. A lot of times, whenever they were shooting free throws, and that just can't happen. A lot of our offensive rebounds come from Derek Lively, just keeping plays
Yeah.
alive.
But you're talking about turnovers, being the story of the game. You're not kidding because off of those 20 turnovers, Mavs points off of those 20 turnovers was 25.
Yep.
Timberwolves points off of the Mavs 10 turnovers with 5 points. That's a 20-point differential just off of points off of turnovers. So
Yeah, I mean that's that's pretty eye opening.
here's another stat for you that you're gonna like because of your disdain for Rudy Gobert. The Mavs won the points in the paint battle, 52 to 38.
I'm not shocked because Rudy Gobert can't score at all. I won't use my favorite analogy for scoring, but
but still, I mean, look, and I hate that I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say stuff like this, but you'd think a 4-time defensive player of the year would be capable of, keeping the Mavs out of the paint as much as they got into it tonight. But, it is what it is.
defensive player of the year. Well, you and I both know who should have been defensive player of the year last year. It was another Frenchman, but it was
Yeah.
not Gobert.
Yeah, if the Spurs, they definitely factored in record way too much because Wemby was putting up some stat lines last season that were unbelievable, like stat lines that hadn't ever been seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I do think he has a great chance to win it this year because I think voter fatigue is going to play a factor in with the Rudy Gobert stuff. I think his chances of winning a 5th time ended with that Western Conference Finals performance.
Dude,
So.
just watch him guard the pick and roll, and that's all you need to know. I mean, the guy, he just can't do it. Honestly, it would not surprise me if Minnesota went to Naz Reid as their starting 5. Not that I would necessarily agree with it because Naz Reid isn't a true post player, but I feel like he moves better, especially laterally. He definitely brings more to the table offensively. I don't know. I could see it happening just because Rudy is so useless on the offensive end and is easily exposable on the defensive end. If they want to go far, I can't see them keeping Rudy in the game for vast amount of minutes. I just can't.
Yeah. We have some more center talk to get into because there's one particular center that kept the game, in my opinion, he's the reason that it kept the game intact even while Anthony Edwards was going off in that first quarter. We'll talk about it on the other side of this, but first we got to pay a few bills. Stay with us. What's up, y'all? We're taking a quick break to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Want to play Prize Picks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code STEPBACK to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code STEPBACK on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
Who the hell is Drewski?
It's you. I was just about to say, I think I'm going to just start calling you Drewski.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Drewski Bear. Anyway, So now we have 2 straight episodes. I didn't know anything about Sugar Sean O'Malley. You don't know who Drewski is. I know you've probably seen videos of him, but he's basically a comedian that I know him through TikTok. But anyway.
One of those guys.
Yeah.
One of the harbingers of brain rot.
Yeah. I gotta say, I gotta apologize to Sugar Sean because I kind of went hard on him in that last episode and said some things that were kind of mean, but it was just my initial. I mean, I can't help it. It was my initial thoughts upon Googling him.
After his performance against Marab, he deserves every bit of it and more.
Oh, it was almost like that's what he's actually doing.
Yeah, it was pitiful.
Okay, yeah. Well, anyway, branching off of the Rudy Gobert thing and center play in this Mavs Wolves game, man, where would the Mavs have been in that first quarter without the play of Daniel Gafford? He came out of the gates on fire. He was high energy, running the floor. He finished the game with 14 points, only had 4 rebounds, but he had 14 points, a steal, a block, was a perfect 6 of 6 from the field in 21 minutes. Big stuff from Gafford. He was great, kind of set the tone for the big man play. And then, Lively off the bench didn't score a lot tonight. He had 5 points on 2 of 3 shooting, but he had 9 rebounds, which led all Mavs. He had 3 steals and a block. So the center play, once again, and this was apparent in the Western Conference Finals, and it was apparent in tonight's game too, favors the Mavs in a big way. Rudy Gobert has all the hardware, I guess, the accolades, the individual defensive accolades, but when it comes down to it, he's just no match for what the Mavs have. They're two-headed center monster. So I guess we'll start with Gafford specifically, and what you saw from him to start this game. Because he's been taking some heat lately. He hasn't been playing up to his standards to start this season, but he looked good tonight.
Well, I mean, in that first quarter, I don't want to say that he practically carried us, but he was a huge reason why we were able to hang in there despite Anthony Edwards going absolutely bonkers. He does a really outstanding job of just being able to sneak in there, sort of towards the dunker spot, maybe even on the block. And he's able to almost he almost hides from Gobert on the backside. And Lively does a pretty good job of this too. But Gobert's issue with guarding post players is, number one, we all know he sucks in the pick and roll. That's been documented at length. He does that drop coverage nonsense. It doesn't work. I'm not even going to get into that. Number two, just on drives from the perimeter, he overhelps a lot, and that leaves that backside open a lot. And usually whenever post players on offense, whenever there's a drive coming from the opposite side of the floor from where they are, they'll come up to the tee, which is like right in front of the rim. And Gafford and Lively both do an outstanding job of sealing right there and just getting in not only into space but also vision of the person driving the lane. And it's just a really easy dump off pass, or it's an easy lob over the top. I mean, we saw that several times tonight. He also had a pretty good impact on the glass. I know he only had 4 rebounds, but how many of those were offensive rebounds?
Look, all I know is that there's another level that this group can get to, like the Lively and Gafford together. Tonight was a preview of that, I think, but it's still, it hasn't reached the potential for what we know it can be.
None of it has.
No, none of it has. But you can see, how do I want to phrase this? You can see the framework of it. You can see how this team is going to progress from here, what they're going to fix, how they're, when they're finally a well-oiled machine and they iron out all the kinks, you can see what it's going to be. And it's going to be a monster, in my opinion. Like, this is, like, tonight, take the game against Utah last night. Luka, horrible game. Absolutely horrible. He was really horrible shooting the ball tonight. He was 10 of 27.
Yeah.
Yes, 10 of 27, 1 of 8 from 3. Still had 24, 8, and 8 in the game, but he was still horrible shooting the ball. Klay Thompson was only 2 of 7 on the night for 7 points. But you had other guys step up, and that's going to be key for the rest of the season. That was the idea behind how Nico Harrison built this roster. Have an abundance of depth, have an abundance of veterans, but a good, not all veterans, but a mixture of young and older veterans too, because you have guys who have been in the league but haven't been in the league very long. Take Najee Marshall, for example. He has not played good at all to start this season, but he had some good moments tonight.
Yeah.
At the very end of the game, I believe it was Anthony Edwards who he caused to turn the ball over. And then it was a 4-point game. He caused the turnover, got fouled, went to the line, nailed the final 2 free throws to put the game away for good. So Najee Marshall had some good moments. Quentin Grimes had some good moments in this game. Only played 12 minutes, but he hit 3 of his 5 threes for 9 points. So
finally,
you can see where things are going to come together for this team as the season progresses. But I'm tickled that they're 3-1 after 4 games, given how they've played.
Yeah, no, I still stand by what I said earlier. I think that we're only at about 60% max capacity. You think about it, when the bench actually starts clicking the way that they can click. Like, imagine this. Imagine Najee Marshall hitting 2 threes a game. Imagine Quentin Grimes hitting 2 or 3 threes a game. Imagine Spencer Dinwiddie coming off the bench in limited minutes hitting about a 3 or 2 threes a game. I mean, that's a difference in a ball game right there. Yeah. And you also have to account for the fact that one of these guys is going to go on an absolute heater every once in a while. We saw Dinwiddie go on his version of a heater last game. So we have a bunch of guys with big play potential who will always, I don't want to say always, who will consistently produce, but also have the tendency to have big games every once in a while. And having that all the way to the end of your bench is a tremendous value.
I got to show this because I've been looking on Twitter as we've progressed through the show here, but I got to show you this that I just saw on here.
I saw that. I like that.
Luka picking a new franchise to torment every year because he's bored, and it's him. It's Andy from Toy Story throwing down Woody, which is the Clippers and the Suns, and he's holding the Timberwolves. I don't want to play with you anymore. That's hilarious. I love it. But yeah, great night. I mean, great back to back. I I know it's early, and I know tired legs don't really factor in as much now as they do midway through the season or at the end of the season. But it's always good to win a game at home, get on a plane, quickly go to Minnesota. And it was an earlier tip-off time, so less than 24 hours later, you're playing another game,
Yep.
and you still get a win against a team that was more rested than you. So,
That's tough. That's
yeah,
really, really hard to do. A back to back, the bottom end of the back end of it being away, that is
yeah,
so hard. That is so
especially
hard.
especially when you're going up against a team that you embarrassed in the Western Conference Finals, and you could tell Anthony Edwards had a chip on his shoulder to start
Oh
that
yeah.
game, and it was looking frightening there for a little bit. He was a man on the mission. He was playing like he had a chance to take that Western Conference Finals trophy back from the Mavs, even though it wouldn't have mattered. So,
Well, there's
um,
two halves to every game, and the way that he plays, it's hard to be a consistent shooter through all four quarters.
yeah.
Um, Also, I think that he may have gotten a little banged up tonight, and that I'm sure that probably was a contributing factor too.
So now the Mavs, they'll get a day off. They'll get Wednesday off, and then they'll be back in action on Halloween on Thursday, October 31st. They'll play the Houston Rockets, which is the first of a 5-game homestand. They'll play the Rockets on Halloween. Then they'll have several days off until they play Orlando, Indiana, Chicago, and then they'll end the homestand against Phoenix.
Orlando kind of concerns me, man. Paulo Banchero
He's
concerns me.
good. He is
You know who he
good.
kind of reminds me of? He kind of reminds me of Tracy McGrady at that age. I don't think he's quite as good as T Mac, but he's very reminiscent to
I
me.
can the way he especially his turnaround jumper. I can see your vision with that.
Yeah.
Now I will say this: Banchero is much bigger than T Mac.
How big?
Well, I mean, not like taller, but just like he seems like more solid than T Mac was. T Mac was kind of skinny coming out. Uh, it seems like Banchero has put on a lot more muscle early on in his career. So
He was huge at Duke. I mean, they were both pretty big guys though. T Mac was 6'9". I don't know how much he weighed, but Banchero is a monster, and
he
he
is.
he concerns me a lot.
He just put up the first 50-point game of the new season the other night. He is a
Yeah,
monster. So we'll see. Mavs, they'll have to take care of business against Houston, and then they'll move on to playing Orlando and Indiana and the rest of that homestand. But Houston is 2-2 to start the year. They really don't have that much. They really don't have any star power, in my opinion. I mean, they've got a collection of good players, decent players,
really good athletes, and they got Reed Shepherd.
but they just don't have the star power. And maybe Reed Shepherd will turn into that later down the road, but they're not there just yet. So I would imagine at home after having a day off, I would imagine the Mavs would come out and their experience would, get them over the finish line in that one. So we'll see how it goes. Should be fun. But so far, great start to the season. I think we're off to a great start to the season with the pod too. Lots of fun things to talk about. This is much more rewarding, I guess you'd say, than those last couple of months of the off season when nothing is going on. So
Yeah,
I'm very grateful to be back in the midst of an actual season and games going on every other night, and it's a bunch of fun. So, guys, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us for yet another episode. Again, please be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. And if you haven't left us a review on Apple Podcasts yet, go do it and put your social media ad on there. It automatically enters you for a chance to win future giveaways. So be sure to go do that. Guys, we appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you Thursday night, Halloween night, to talk about Mavs Rockets. We'll see you.